In this section of the DVD, we will demonstrate concrete polishing. It is a general overview of the process of polishing for this quality of concrete. Because concrete quality varies, it's important to remember that there's a specific process for each slab. For this reason, we suggest you call us for solutions to your specific concrete challenges.
In this demonstration, we're going to use 80 grit turbo cups on a 30-30 prep master to remove a thin coating of floor paint. Typically, the 80 grit turbos are not a first cut tool to remove a coating, but because it is so thin and degraded, it's more than suitable for our application. We're running the 30-30 prep master at 60 Hz, making sure to move in a side-to-side motion. This eliminates any chance for cornrowing or gouges in the concrete. In this work area, we have an old drain that's in the concrete. We cannot run the tools over the top of the drain or it would cause damage to the tools as well as the machine. So we're careful to go around it and then detail it later with the edger. Now that we've completed the 80 grit turbo step, we now have to go back and detail around the drain cover that we avoided with the 30-30 prep master. We'll use the Humvee stand-up edger with a 50 grit turbo blade. This will remove the paint as well as level the concrete around the drain. After finishing the 80 grit turbo step, it's now time to change the tool plates. To change the tool plates, we use an impact wrench with a 1/2 inch socket. We then take the easy pry bar, insert it into the slot, and then shake the head free. To replace the tool holders, we hold them in position and then hand start the bolt using the socket. We tighten it using the impact wrench and then put our 100 terrazzo pads on the Velcro holders for our next step. We run the 100 terrazzos at around 60 Hz, the same as the previous step, as well as making sure to move the machine side to side. We're moving at a pace that ensures that we're removing all the scratches from the previous step. Typically, the 100 terrazzo pads will be used wet in order to thoroughly remove the scratches from an 80 turbo. However, on this particular floor, the softness of the concrete doesn't merit using water, and in the end, the dry process will be faster. After this step, it's important to vacuum the surface of any spent diamonds or concrete dust to prevent any contamination in the following steps. You'll notice that the scratch from the 80 turbo is much more aggressive than from the 100 terrazzo. It's very important to inspect the work area before proceeding with the next step. The next step in the process is to apply a concrete densifier. The concrete densifier is probably the most important part in the process because the polish that is done to the surface of the concrete would not be permanent without this chemical. The densifier must be washed from the surface after the reaction has taken place. You do this using clean water and a wet vac or a floor scrubber. The next step in the process is to use the 30-30 prep master outfitted with the 200 grit Premium Plus pads. Once again, we're running the machine at 60 Hz and in a side-to-side motion, ensuring that our pace is getting all the scratches out of the surface from the preceding step. After this step, it's important to vacuum the surface of any spent diamonds or concrete dust to prevent any contamination in the following steps. For this particular project, this will be the final step in the process. Typically, a concrete floor will be polished to an 800 to get the full aesthetic value and the shine from the floor. But as we see here, the concrete already exhibits reflectivity. When polishing concrete, providing any less than a 400 grit polish will cause there to be traffic patterns in the concrete because wheel traffic as well as foot traffic will polish a densified surface to a 400 grit. So to eliminate any kind of traffic patterns through aisle centers,